You versus you is the biggest lie in personal development that's ever been told, because you were never actually fighting yourself. What you were missing is a leader in yourself, not to fight, but to lead you to your desired reality. You see, right now, there's a version of you that wakes up at the beginning of the week, every single Monday, with full energy, clear vision, and total conviction. And by Wednesday, that same version of you is fighting to even send a simple email. And every time that happens, you tell yourself the same story. I need more discipline, more pressure, more grinding. And you see, that story is a lie because it's assuming that you're in a battle, but you were never in a battle to begin with. Here's what nobody in self-development will tell you. The entire you versus you model is a fundamental misread of what's actually happening inside you. You're not one person locked in a battle with yourself. You are the collection of versions, habits, emotional responses, identities, all competing for activation based on the trigger. And nobody taught you how to lead them. And that gap right there is the root of every cycle that you haven't been able to break. That's what happens when nobody's directing the internal system. You see, everything starts with a trigger. So let me write trigger here. So from a trigger, this fires and then a version of you activates. So from here, there's identity activation that is triggered. And that version of you that's activated, this goes into then an activation of your behavior. And then this behavior produces a result. You see, you don't have a discipline problem here. You have a version management problem, and nobody in this space is teaching you how to solve it at the root. And I built this process through many of the different entrepreneurs, business owners, and founders that I work with, because I kept noticing the same patterns. And they would always try to add more discipline, more grinding, more work. And essentially, they would arrive at the same place, trying to fight with something that didn't need to be having a fight. It needed to be led. And that's what we're going to walk through today. So let me go over exactly what we're going to cover today. Why you versus you model is structurally broken. Plus the real architecture. This is why you're not just one person, and what's actually firing inside you every time a version takes over. Then we're going to go over the failure chain. This is the fight, resistance, burnout, then into chaos, and the single shift that collapses it permanently. And then finally, we're going to go over the lead system. This is the self-leadership system. So you can actually lead yourself to the version of the reality that you actually want, instead of trying to fight yourself. You see, the fight model keeps you in a loop that you were never supposed to win, because you were never supposed to win it. You were supposed to end it. Now, let me give you the structured definition of all of this, because this reframe is the foundation of everything that follows. So you are not one person. You are multiple patterns. Okay? You're not a single unified self that's locked into a battle. What you are is a collection of habits, emotional responses, identities, and patterns, all competing for activation depending on the trigger. Okay? And so something happens in your life, right? You go through a particular event or situation, it gives you a trigger. Then that leads to your activating your particular identity that's corresponded to that particular activation, okay? Based off of this trigger. Now, then this leads into your behavior. What action are you going to take, or any action at all? And that's going to give you your result. And so here, identity activation, this can be multiple different patterns, versions of you that are activated, all based on this trigger. And so ultimately, your life is a result of which version activates the most. This is why you can be a completely different person on Monday, full of energy, full of vision, full of excitement, and then Wednesday be a completely different person. And it's not inconsistency, it's not weakness, it's version switching without a director, without a leader. And when you have no dominant leader, this is what happens. So no dominant leader leads to version chaos. Then you go into the fight versus, the you versus you. And then this goes into burnout. You're trying to fight yourself. And then this version right here is chaotic. Okay. This dominant leader here, there is none. So it's going to activate based off of that specific trigger. But if there's nobody directing this identity activation, and you're letting it unconsciously, without your awareness, activate, then it's going to naturally select what it's been selecting previously and what is most familiar. And the fight model makes it worse. Because here's the thing, when you try to overpower your avoidant self, your reactive self, your comfort-seeking self, you create resistance, and resistance creates burnout, and burnout restarts the cycle. And so ultimately, you don't win by fighting versions, right? That whole notion of you versus you win by leading them. So let's walk through this, exactly how we're going to lead our versions. So now we're going to walk through the self-leadership system. So let me go ahead and erase the board here, and we'll walk through that. Okay, so lead. This is the self-leadership system. This is an acronym. So step 1, L, locate. Now with the locate, we want to ask ourselves a couple questions here so we can truly locate that version of ourselves that's running things, okay? So who's running things right now? So like, who's the dominant version of you that is actually running the show more often than not, right? Because sometimes you can be where, you have that Monday where you're just firing off in all cylinders, and then Wednesday comes and you're like, don't want to do anything because it's difficult, it's hard, or you're just not feeling it. So who's running things right now? Most dominant version, okay? And then from this, is it the avoidant self, reactive self? Because you cannot redirect what you're not aware of. You need to locate this. You need to identify which version of you, okay, that is running the game, the system right now. The most dominant version, okay? Like, what do you see in a normal week? Normal 7 days, okay? Let's say you're Monday. Let's go like this. Say Monday, you're fired off in terms of like everything's perfect. You're ready to go. You're planned your whole week on Sunday. Tuesday, maybe you drop off a little bit. You have to-do lists, and then maybe you only do one or two of them and you procrastinate on the others. Okay. Then Wednesday, you don't even really want to open up your email. No activity. Then Thursday, and then you're questioning whether to continue, to even do anything. Then Friday, you will start telling yourself that next week's going to be different. Next week's going to be better. I'm going to get really on the ball, and come next Monday, I'm going to just take off, and then the rest of the week's going to be amazing. So, and then Saturday, don't really do much, not much. And then Sunday, you plan. This is where the planning comes in, where you're like, come next Monday, it's going to be amazing. I'm going to have a great week. And so you want to look at what's the dominant version of you that's running here, okay? The drop off. What version of that? That's your avoidant self, that's avoiding what you need to do. And then why? Why do you think you're avoiding it? Because it's hard, it's difficult. You have maybe self-belief issues here. Wednesday, you don't really have any activity. It's hard for you to do anything in terms of even sending a simple email. Why? Okay. Maybe you got some emails about a customer that wants to cancel, or you didn't close a deal. And so then you're being reactive. So look at what version of you is running the week and then the weekdays, and what's the dominant force here. Okay. Next step, E, establish the desired identity and ask yourself, who do you choose to be right now? Regardless of how you feel. You see, this particular point here, in terms of regardless of how you feel, because you may want to be a specific version of you that is the one who makes things happen, takes care of things, is on the ball, is on point. However, how you feel is a big factor here, because a lot of times this is a nervous system issue where you know that you have tasks, actions. Let me put this here. So actions you need to take, okay, based off of this version of you. And then you feel tension, okay? You feel nervous. And then it leads you to not make a move because you feel a certain way. You feel like it's misaligned. However, you need to ask yourself the question of, okay, if I make this move, is it leading me? Is it directing me to that version of me, or to the outcome that I actually want? Because oftentimes we are met with action with two different feelings. There's the intuition, and then there's the logic. We can make all the reasons up in terms of, hey, we can't do this because of X, Y, and Z, this problem, that problem. And then the other side of it is the intuition. There's the feeling. There's the gut feeling of knowing that, you know what, I really need to do this, but it doesn't feel good. And so what the issue is here is the nervous system that is telling you don't do it because it's not familiar, because the nervous system only understands what is familiar and is trying to protect you. So what you need to do here is you need to ask yourself, is this action moving me towards my desired outcome? Okay? Because this is a big, big deal here. Because regardless of how you feel, yes, this is important. You need to acknowledge that you're going to be feeling a certain way, but you need to ask if this action is moving you towards your desired outcome, which oftentimes it is. Okay. So keep this in mind. And one of the things that I see a lot with this one here is people want to feel like that version of themselves before they actually claim it. So they want to feel like this future version over here. Okay. That is the one that's has the desired outcome, the desired reality, all of that. But you can't feel your way into an identity. You claim it, and then it starts to feel like you. So it needs to become a first and internal decision, understanding, acknowledgement. I am X. I am somebody who is successful, who is abundant, who provides value, right? All of that, it needs to be first understood, acknowledged, and made aware and done internally. And then the world reflects that back to you in the external. Step 3, you want to align behavior with identity. So you want to act from this version here that you've decided, and you want to disregard how you feel, because remember, more often than not, even when you're making a decision that's correct, that's accurate, that's right for you, that is in line and aligned with your new identity here, you're going to feel tension. You're going to feel like you're nervous or a little bit of hesitancy. It's normal, because the nervous system is what's regulating that, and it's only going to function and work with what is familiar. And so if it's unfamiliar, you're going to naturally feel that. But if you know that it's moving you towards your desired outcome, and it's coming from a behavior that this new identity would take, then it's aligned, and you need to move forward with that. And this starts as simple as one action this version would take. Now, for me, and the way I like to teach people this is that it doesn't need to be something super large. It can be something as simple as like doing something that you know that you wouldn't regularly do, but this version would do. Okay. So maybe it's about calling a prospect that you normally wouldn't be calling because you have a little bit of fear, you have uncertainty, you're not really confident. And so step into that mind frame of this new identity and then take action from that, and start small, because when you start small, you build up and you compound, right? Like this right here, these little things, okay? These are little actions, right? And over time, they compound. Just think about the stock market, right? Over time, things compound. And so with this, these are small little actions, but what they lead up to is one big, huge identity shift that compounds over time, right? Because it's never going to be night and day. You're never going to wake up and tomorrow and be new you, okay? That's not how it works. It's not the natural order of things. Think about just plants, trees, the weather, the seasons. Everything has a natural cadence and order. So you can't expect that. So what you need to do is work with the order, with natural nature and how things go. Simple, small, little actions, okay, that compound over time. Step 4, you want to direct consistently. You see, leadership isn't a one-time thing, isn't a one-time decision. It's a repeated signal to your nervous system that this version over here is in charge. Because remember, the nervous system is the biggest factor here, because you're going to be taking action and you're going to be doing things regardless of how you feel, but you're still going to feel that. And I understand it. It's going to feel scary. It's going to feel uncertain. You're going to feel uneasy, okay? Like tension. And it's natural, because the nervous system is trying to protect itself, you, the version of you, because it's doing what is familiar. And once you step outside of that box of the familiar, then the nervous system is going to freak out. But that's where you do it anyways because you know that it's leading you to take on the actions of that version of you that is the one who has that desired reality, right? That version of you that is in command, that is directing, that is leading. And every time that you locate and you establish and you align and then you direct consistently, you're casting a vote for which version leads. So this whole system here is essentially not about fighting yourself, okay? The whole notion of you versus you does not work. It's incorrect. It's flawed. It's, I need to lead myself and become aware of the version of me that's running things the most dominant here, okay? And then figuring out which version of that is it throughout the week, and then establish that desired identity of who I want to be, okay? What does that look like? Align your behavior, take small little micro actions, all of that. And each time you're doing all of this, you're casting a vote for the future version of you that's going to be leading. And here's what I need you to understand. You're not your own enemy. You never were. You are an identity without a clear leader, switching versions based on whatever emotional weather arrived that morning. This lead system changes that. Locate the version that's active. Establish the one that you choose to be. Align your actions to it and direct it until it leads by default. You're not struggling because you're weak. You're struggling because nobody taught you to lead yourself. And today, that changes.